Let me start with something most people won't admit out loud. If a man has almost no digital footprint today, people don't know what to do with him. No constant posting, no stories, no personal updates, no online identity to scroll through at 2 a.m. And immediately assumptions start forming. He's hiding something. He's outdated. He's antisocial. He must be lonely. But here's the psychology most people completely miss. Men with zero digital footprint aren't disconnected from life. They're often deeply connected to reality. And once you understand the psychology behind this, you'll never look at silence the same way again. I want to talk about the kind of man who doesn't announce his life online, the man who doesn't document every win, every meal, every thought, the man who exists without needing witnesses, because that choice is not accidental, it's psychological. Let's start with the first truth. Men with no digital footprint usually value internal validation over external approval. They don't rely on likes, comments, or views to feel real. Their sense of worth doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being aligned. When something good happens in their life, their first instinct isn't to post it. It's to process it, to feel it fully without interrupting the moment to capture proof. Psychologically, this shows a strong internal locus of control. Their brain is wired to ask, do I respect this? Not, will others approve of this? That alone puts them at odds with modern culture, because today, visibility is mistaken for value, noise is mistaken for confidence, and silence is often mistaken for weakness. But in psychology, silence often signals self-sufficiency. Another important truth is this. Men with zero digital footprint are often highly selective about where their energy goes. They understand, consciously or unconsciously, that attention is a finite resource. Every post costs attention. Every argument online costs emotional energy. Every comparison costs mental clarity. So they opt out. Not because they're scared of being seen, but because they don't want to be drained. They've felt what constant digital exposure does to the mind. The subtle anxiety, the pressure to perform, the endless comparison to lives that aren't even real. And at some point, they decided peace was worth more than presence. That decision requires psychological strength. Here's something few people talk about. Being invisible online takes more confidence than being visible. When you don't post, you don't control the narrative. People can't easily define you. You can't rely on curated images to shape how you're perceived. That's uncomfortable for most people. But men with no digital footprint tolerate that discomfort. They don't rush to correct assumptions. They don't feel the need to explain themselves constantly. Psychologically, this shows emotional independence. They don't need to be understood by everyone to feel secure. They're okay being misinterpreted by people who don't know them. Another key trait is privacy consciousness. Men with zero digital footprint are usually very aware that information is power. They know that once something is shared, it's no longer controlled. Screenshots exist, algorithms remember, strangers analyze. So they keep their inner world guarded. This doesn't mean they're secretive in a manipulative way. It means they understand boundaries. They share selectively, in person, with people who have earned access. Not to timelines, not to followers. This kind of discretion used to be normal. Now it's rare. And rarity often looks suspicious to a world addicted to exposure. There's also a deeper psychological layer here. Many men with zero digital footprint are builders, not broadcasters. They're focused on what they're creating, not how it looks. Their energy goes to work, skill, health, thinking, and real relationships. They don't interrupt progress to announce progress. Psychology shows that announcing goals publicly often reduces follow-through. The brain gets a dopamine hit from the announcement, not the achievement. Men who stay quiet avoid that trap. They let results speak instead of promises. That silence isn't emptiness, it's discipline. Another thing people misunderstand is social intelligence. Men without digital footprints are often very socially aware in real life. They read rooms well. They listen more than they speak. They don't outsource connection to screens. Their conversations aren't optimized for performance. They're optimized for presence. They don't need an audience to feel engaged. One meaningful interaction is enough. This often makes them appear mysterious, even intimidating, not because they're trying to be, but because they don't over-explain themselves. And psychologically, mystery creates respect. There's also an emotional resilience factor. Men who avoid constant online exposure protect themselves from emotional volatility. They're not riding the highs of validation or the lows of comparison. Their mood isn't dictated by engagement metrics. Their self-image isn't constantly being edited based on feedback. This creates emotional stability. They feel less pressure to prove themselves, less urge to compete with strangers, less anxiety about being left behind. Their progress feels quieter, but steadier. Now, let's address the assumption that men with no digital footprint are lonely. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings. Loneliness isn't about being unseen online, it's about feeling unseen in real life. Many men who disappear from digital spaces actually reconnect with themselves. They rebuild hobbies, they deepen a few relationships, they spend time alone without numbing it with scrolling. Psychologically, they develop comfort with solitude. And solitude is not isolation, it's the ability to be alone without feeling empty. That skill is rare, and it's powerful. Men who master solitude don't chase distraction. They don't rush into noise to avoid their thoughts. They sit with themselves long enough to understand who they are. That self-knowledge shows up everywhere, in how they speak, in how they choose, in how they walk away from things that don't align. There's also a protective instinct involved. Some men choose zero digital footprint after being burned, by betrayal, by misinterpretation, by having their words used against them. Psychologically, withdrawal can be a form of healing. They don't disappear because they're weak. They disappear because they're recalibrating. They rebuild their identity privately before re-entering the world more intentionally. And finally, there's the philosophical side. Men with no digital footprint often reject the idea that life must be documented to be meaningful. They don't live for memory storage, they live for experience. They don't need proof they existed, they're too busy living. Their confidence isn't loud, it's quiet, unannounced, undeniable when you encounter it in person. So, if you're a man with little to no digital footprint, let me say this clearly. You're not outdated, you're not invisible, and you're not behind. You've simply chosen a path that doesn't reward noise. And if this video felt like it described you, then you're not alone in your silence. There are more of us than people realize. If this resonated, like the video, subscribe for deeper psychology content, and share it with someone who understands the value of being unseen. Because in a world obsessed with visibility, choosing privacy isn't weakness. It's self-respect.